What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast, where we talk about everything when it comes to men's health, be it mental health, physical health, male enhancement, be it getting your dick right or getting your money right. Whatever the case may be when it comes to developing yourself to the best version that you can possibly be as a dude, this is a place where we discuss exactly that. And I'm your host, CJ Rodriguez, fat loss coach / muscle building or conditioning. It depends on whatever your goals are in regards to physical fitness. That is what I do. However, over time, I, like many of you guys, have decided to say, hey, what else can I develop as a man? And, that's the beauty of this podcast. And what we do is that we get to have some awesome conversations with dudes who have gone out there and done that. And obviously females too, that can bring a whole bunch to the table in regards to developing ourselves in any, regard as men. Right. So the thing is, it's this podcast, this episode with Joel really shed a whole lot of light on what's possible, regardless of where you are starting from. And the reason why I say that is that, Joel's his journey, man, started off in Cuba. Right. And it was about the time where, communism had taken over, and they're like, all right, well, you guys got to get the hell out of here if you don't want to be a part of this. And his family said, all right, we're out of here. And he tells a story, and I'm going to let him tell it, about, his journey to the United States and his struggles early on in life and how he was having a difficult time. But, Joel ain't no bitch. He didn't take it. He didn't take it. You just lie down there and play the victim card, which unfortunately is far too prevalent in the society. Instead, he decided to say, hey, what can I do to better myself in this situation? He took on entrepreneurship, absolutely killed it, right? He absolutely killed it in that field. And then he decided, okay, I'm already successful. What can I do for other people? And that's kind of the crazy thing, is that he took all the knowledge that he had, all the wonderful things that he had put together. And then he decided, I want to make this world a better place for other people, for other guys, people that are suffering, right? And I want them to be able to thrive in the same way that I do. And, that's what led him to him creating his course, right? And it's called the 31daychallenges.com is where you can check it out. And, there you can get the coaching that he offers, all the stuff that he provides. You can definitely check it out. All the links are always in the description. And the reason why I actually bring this up is that he, he hooked me up with the book, 31 Days to Become a Better Man, which is why I titled this, the name of this podcast, because of this episode, is because, I got the book, I'm going through it. And man, it really has helped me shed a lot of light, or has shed a lot of light on things that I need to work on as a man, things that you might think, oh, I got that mastered, but it might not be the case. And that's kind of why this book to me is honestly, it's been pretty profound, the discoveries that I've made. And the beauty of it is that you can get it too, and you can work through it yourself, or you can join the community that he has and be a part of something bigger than just yourself, because sometimes we may need that help, or we might need somebody else's perspective when it comes to developing ourselves as men. So I really loved, his insight. I love his book. I love what he's representing. I love what he's all about. So if you do want to follow him on any of the social media platforms, be sure to check out the links in the description. And again, be sure to reach out to him. He's a honestly spectacular dude. And I really appreciate the fact that, hey, rags to riches, and now is sharing how he got there, his journey, all that wonderful stuff, along with just trying to empower men in general. And in a time like this, man, where I'll be real, if you guys listen to this podcast, you guys know that I'm not really down with, society saying it's okay to chop kids' dicks off. This is the hill that I die on. I'm just not rolling with it. I'm sorry. If you believe in that, these new age kind of movements, I'm sorry, but I think it's wrong. I think it's nasty. I don't think it has any place. So, I really, the whole purpose of this podcast is to empower men and to make sure that we can empower the men that are coming up after us, the generations that follow. I got 2 boys, and I want to make sure that we as men can develop ourselves to our fullest, to our full potential, so that we can make this world a better place for the generations that come after, right? Regardless of whether you have daughters, whether you got sons, whether you got nephews, nieces. That's what this podcast is all about. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this episode with a dude who keeps it 100, which is wonderful, because in this day and age of a lot of fakeness, it's great to see somebody that shines through. So enough of my yapping. let's jump on into today's episode with none other than Joel Gandara. Before we get started, one more thing. If you want to get any PE gear, be sure to check out TotalManShop.com. That is TotalManShop.com. And use the promo code MHS2020. Promo code is MHS2020 and get 12% off. Be sure to check out their wide variety of all kinds of good quality PE equipment. All right? And that's promo code MHS2020 for 12% off. And the website, once again, is TotalManShop.com. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast, where I'm joined by Joel Gandara, who's going to teach us a thing or two about masculinity in this day and age. And, you know, it's crazy because we share a lot of the common opinions. You know, we share a lot of the same opinions in regards to where masculinity is today. And we want to discuss more of these different topics because I think it's important things that guys just aren't talking about enough. Or for some reason, it seems like society as a whole doesn't want to accept these things. But that's why we have this podcast and that's why we have these conversations. But first and foremost, Joel, how are you today, man?
TJ, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. Happy to talk about the things we're going to talk about here.
And it's crazy because, you know, the first thing that I thought of was like, you know, you seem, from what I've already gathered, like a strong dude. And I don't think that was really something that came by accident. You know, I think that, you know, your childhood, your upbringing probably had a lot to do with that to help you define you and make you the man you are today. You could just tell us more about your story and, you know, how you came up essentially.
Yeah. So some of my earliest memories are about as traumatic as a human can have because I risked death early on. I was born in Havana, Cuba, communist country, and my parents did what they could to get us out. We got on a boat and we were on that boat for 12 hours. 4 of those hours were a very bad storm. And that is graffitied, it's tattooed, it's stained into my brain. I'll never forget it because 4 of those hours were spent yelling and screaming and nervousness and noise. And it was the boat would go up and I'd look around. It was all sky. And then when it would drop in between the swales, it was 4 walls of water and you couldn't see any. It felt like you were underwater. It was all water. And then boom, we'd bounce up and then boom, we'd go down. It was 4 hours of that. And, you know, it was a boat that had capacity 70 people. It was a small fishing boat, and it was 150 of us. You think we had life jackets or, you know, enough security? There's nothing. And boats went down during the time when people did that and got out. So we're happy to be here, lucky to be here. I'll tell you what, I don't have anything from Cuba other than my memories. And one thing, when I walk into my closet, I got one shirt, little tiny shirt. And it's facing me the moment I walk in my closet. It's the shirt that I wore on that boat. And that's my reminder every single day that I've got a dozen cousins that I don't know. First cousins. I remember vaguely, very little about them. And they wish they had the opportunities that I have in freedom. So I've driven my whole life to succeed. And I've had that shirt. And my parents never told me, keep this shirt. It's just something we never threw away. But once I realized, oh, this is my reminder. That's my reminder, number one, to be very grateful to live in opportunity. And number two, oh yeah, I've got all these cousins who weren't able to do this. Let me do it for them. So I'm here just to push along. Grew up right outside of Oakland, California. You know, I got here to Key West, Florida, and went directly to Oakland, California, Bay Area near San Francisco, and grew up there. Rough neighborhood, rough school, fights every single day. Not me. I avoided fights as much as I could, but every day there were fights. I saw handguns at school. The friends would flash me and show me, and it was rough. And I knew one thing growing up, I did not want to live there. I did not want my kids to one day grow up there. So what did I do? I started making money in 4th grade because I bought these trading cards and I started buying them and selling them and I made some money. And in 4th grade, I bought myself a $50 robot, a transformer that I wanted really bad. My parents did not buy me toys because they just didn't have the money. It was food, it was clothing and the basics. And that was it. So I got to my first taste of success in 4th grade. I made $50 one month, saved it up and bought that toy and made myself happy. And it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. In high school, I sold chocolates and I netted in my pocket $30 a day. Back in the 90s, that's a good amount of money for a kid. I always had a job after school. I've been financially independent since I was 16. Started paying my parents rent when I was 18 or 19. Bought my first house at 22. and been hustling ever, all those times. But one of those things that happened and changed my life was I used to go to garage sales in high school, and I'd buy stuff and I'd take it to the flea market if I found anything good. One time I found a guy selling cologne testers. They probably fell off a truck. I don't know where he got them, but it was the ghetto and I just needed to make money. And I bought a bunch of colognes for $5 each, sold them for like 20. These are $50, $60 colognes, made some money. But one day I found a guy selling underwear. They were Jockey brand new in the package. He was a sales rep. I bought everything he had. I spent $500, $1 each. I took it to the flea market. I made $3,000. So I netted $2,500, and I said, this sure beats my $8 an hour full-time job. I'll keep my job, but I'm going to keep looking for more options like this. I found a company in Mexico that would sell to me, and I started selling them here, selling them on eBay, taking it to trade shows in Las Vegas, New York, Paris. I'm covering a lot of years here, but I'm going to speed through it. And I grew that business, and I grew it to several $1,000,000 a year. This kid didn't speak English, failed the first time I tried school in the US. I flunked, grew up poor, grew up thinking I was a little bit dumb because I didn't understand English. Had a lot of insecurities growing up. And here I was netting in my pocket over $1,000,000 a year, selling underwear. And it just happened a few years before from going to garage sale. I ran that business for about 20 years, just sold it less than 6 months ago, exited, I'm done. And now what I do is I run a men's program. I wrote a book, and just in the first year, I brought 250 men through it. And I think we're changing their lives. They've told me I'm changing their life. But when I meet their wives, they've told me, you've really changed my life. You've gotten my husband to the guy I fell in love with. To me, that's all the reward I need. I don't chase money anymore. I did it. I made money. And now I get to just do my passion.
That's interesting, man. And it's almost like you found your success, and then afterwards, it's almost like you found your calling, right? Which I find captivating, because I'm like, you had all that monetary success. What led you to say, hey, now it's my time to just help other dudes that are struggling? What was it that led you to that?
Yeah, once I started, here's what happened. I've read about 1,000 business, self-help, biography books. I read a lot. And I used to run ultra marathon distance. So I would put headphones on. I go to 2.5 speed because I think really quickly. So I'd cover 3-4 books a week, really good books. The Jeff Bezos story, The Secret, whatever. I read all these great books. And I started thinking, all right, I'm doing everything I'm learning in these good books. And then I started noticing around, because when I was hustling and building my business, my head was down. I didn't know what anybody was doing around me. So what do you think when your head's down? Oh, everybody must be like me. And then I started competing, getting out in the real world, growing my business. And I started realizing people aren't doing what they say. That guy, the buyer of that store, that told me he'd send me the order by 5 o'clock, didn't send it. That vendor told me that he was going to fix that problem. He didn't see, there's no integrity. There's no like setting low standards, but then beating them. And, like I like to set low expectations. My customers would send me orders when I was wholesaling in stores. I'd get that order and I'd say, thank you. We'll ship it out tomorrow. We'll have it out for you. Hell no. I lie to every client. That order is going out today. I want to blow them away. And then I'm going to also handwrite them a handwritten note, put them a little Starbucks card in there as a gift, and just blow everyone out of the water. I did that. I built it up. I bought 14 companies along the way before I rolled it all up and sold mine. But so my motivation was that I go, wait a minute. I'm not that poor kid who has nothing to share. I'm pretty good. I started realizing that. So then opportunities started coming along the way when I was building my business, where people would say, hey, I saw what you're doing. We'd like to interview you for this newspaper, years ago, or for this magazine article. And then people started asking me, hey, can you coach or can you mentor in my organization? And I had a problem saying no in the beginning, and I'd accept everything, right? Every speaking engagement, I don't do that anymore. But now I started saying, all right, yeah, I'll mentor here, I'll mentor there. And then I started saying to the people I was mentoring, hey, here's what I would try. And you don't have to do what I say, but here's what I would try. And they started trying it, and it started working. And that gave me a little bit of an ego boost. I was like, I'm pretty good. So what happened from that is, from volunteering for so many organizations, and I love organic stuff. This just happened. It wasn't a plan. About 8 years ago, a dog breeder in Texas. He was my first official coaching client. I didn't have a coaching business, but he insisted that he pay me a few $1,000s for my time. And I go, all right, if you insist, but I don't need your money. I'll mentor you for free. And he goes, if I don't pay you, I won't listen. I know myself. I go, fair enough. Let's do it. I told I was making over $1 million in my apparel company. And I told my wife, but I was only working at that point like 4 hours a week. I got myself out of it. I put a vice president. I automated. We wrote software. I got good people, and they ran the business for me. I just had to oversee it a little bit. And I told my wife, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to coach someone and I'm going to make $50,000 for the year. This is amazing. And it's good to help people.
Yeah.
And I just put some earbuds on. I go for a walk with the dog and I'm going to help this guy. I did it. But see, here's what happened. He wanted business advice and I gave it to him and I helped him and we thought through things. But then I started asking, hey, what's your relationship like with your wife? What exercise are you doing? Are you eating properly? Are you still drinking alcohol? We talked about all these things. And he's like, dude, I didn't hire you for all that. And I go, all right, I'll step back if you don't want me to. Well, we could dive in a little bit more because your brain functions on healthy nutrition, not on alcohol. It needs exercise. You need all these things. You need to sleep right. You can't be in a fight with your wife and go sell a $10,000 dog consistently and effectively because you're not going to feel like making that phone call or doing this thing. And he agreed and we did it. That guy's still in my life. He's in my men's program and he's been in my life for the last 8 years and recruited people for me and all this stuff. So then I told my wife, I'm going to make 50,000. That first year I made 156,000 as a coach and I got to change lives. And I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. The day I sell my company, that's what I'm going to do. So I built it up for those 8 years playing with it. But it wasn't until recently that I wrote a book and developed the program.
Interesting. And it's crazy because sometimes in life, it's almost that organic road is what really like makes you, I mean, always makes your ears perk up where you're like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. You know, I'm pretty decent at this. And then when you get that fulfillment of actually seeing how you change people's lives, you know, that's got to be, you know, just kind of the cherry on top. But now it's funny that you mentioned that you started looking at other aspects of his life and you may have been kind of defensive at first, as I think most men are. But what's a common pattern that you find amongst men that just start to work with you, you know, at the onset to, you know, like what are some of the major issues that you find that most guys are struggling with early on when they start working with you?
Everyone's different. And it also depends on where they are in their age and the career they're doing. Because it could be a 55-year-old guy who's an executive and he wants to start his own business. He's got some limiting beliefs that I don't know. I've never been an entrepreneur, right?
Be sure to check out jeltogrow.com where all masculine health solutions listeners get 30% off with the promo code MHS28. That is promo code MHS28. If you check out jeltogrow.com, you can check out the balms, the ball stretchers, and coaching if that is what you're interested. So be sure to check it out to get your PE journey started the right way with the balms and all the other good things that they have. And of course, the coaching. But be sure to use the promo code MHS28. That is promo code MHS28 for 30% off.
But I need this income. The other ones are like, I'll give you a common one. It'll be like a 40-year-old. He's starting to feel a plateau in his life. He's got a couple of kids. He's got a wife. Things are kind of stale. He gets up in the morning. He goes, helps get the kids ready. He drops them off at school. He goes to work. He comes back at 7 o'clock at night. Maybe they have dinner. Maybe they ate without him. And he just does it again and does it again. And it's a rut and a plateau. And then we feel like, is this all that life had to offer? Look back when you were 12 years old. What made you excited? I like 12 years old as a number because I loved sports. I loved to wrestle. Yeah. I loved to play baseball, soccer, basketball, everything, hang out with friends. And when I think of those times, for me, 12-year-old was a magical time. There wasn't the responsibilities of being like an older teenager. You're just a kid, but you're big enough that you can go to the park by yourself and do these things. So that was a happy time for me. And that's what I'm trying to repeat for guys. Get them back to that 12-year-old mindset of like, I find a lot of enjoyment in getting together with my friends, not getting drunk, because you probably weren't getting drunk at 12 years old, I hope, but playing sports, talking about stuff, talking about girls, whatever it is. But the first step that I always work on is developing the reason they're on this planet. I call it in my book, it's the first chapter, it's Light My Fire. I want to light that fire. I want to get them excited again so they break the rut. Now, the problem is they blame it on their wife, they blame it on their boss or their employees or their vendors or customer, whatever they want to blame it on. What I firmly believe in is that it's us. We have so much more control. If you think you don't have control in your life, get ready for depression because everything is happening to you. But the moment you start realizing, wait a minute, I have something to do with this. I can control my happiness. I can improve that bad relationship that my wife and I have developed because we've practiced bad habits that got us to this bad stage. That can be fixed through some little bit of action. It's not groundbreaking. I don't have anything that people go, I've never thought this. It's telling them, hey, talking it through, coming up with a solution, and then holding them accountable to make sure they do the action to get to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's kind of like I got to get my clients to log their food, and then I got to ask them, like, "Hey, man, how come you didn't log yesterday or whatever?" And it's kind of like the step-by-step process to keep people constantly on it. The other thing that you mentioned, though, which is another thing that I find that is a recurring theme just in society as a whole, is self-limiting beliefs. And I mean, you glossed over it, but I'm like that's a huge subject that I think many of us have. How do you go about really getting to somebody's mind and dealing with these self-limiting beliefs and getting them to make that change? Because I can't imagine that that's easy.
Yeah, no. So here's the first step is to ask them, what are those beliefs? What do you think will keep you from succeeding? Why would you fail? And they get it all out of their system. Okay, okay, okay. And then fortunately, I've got a track record of working with guys. So I can tell them a story about a guy I was doing 30 million a year, putting about 4 million a year to the bottom line in his pocket every year. And he thought he was a failure. And he thought that when people find out that he's just an average guy, this is all going to go to hell. That is ridiculous. This guy built up these websites, created his own products, got good marketing channels, did everything so intelligently. And yet he thinks he's a failure. And this life got it all wrong. The world just accidentally gave him this luck. Well, wait a minute. Who's the one working 12 hours a day for the last 15 years? Oh, that was you? Okay. And who's the one that made that decision to buy that customer or buy that competitor? And who's the one who told you to hire that vice president? He's like, no, I did all those things. Oh, it starts coming together and through a few conversations. And usually here's something and it's not an ego thing. I try not to let my ego ever get in the way. But when I coach someone, I tell them, do you think I've created success? And they know some of my backstory in business and life. And they go, yeah, you've created success. I go, okay. If I think you're a winner, if I think over the next 6 months, let's say we're working together, that you're doing the right things, do you think you're on the right track? And they go, yeah, man. If you're telling me that I'm doing all the right things, I believe it. I trust that I'm on the right track. All right. If I think you're a loser because I start seeing activity that's just loser stuff, are you on the wrong track? I go, yeah. If you think I'm a loser, and then I tell them, don't let me down. Don't let me think you're a loser. When you tell me you're going to do this thing, let's do this thing and let's follow up and let's not make excuses. I had a call today with a coaching client in Europe. I've been working with him for about a year, 10 months. And he did not get something done today. And he defaulted to the normal human behavior of giving me excuses. So I think I calculated, okay, we talked a week ago. You were supposed to get these 5 things done. You told me they'll take you about an hour to do those things. How many hours in a week? I think we calculated 168. You couldn't find 1 hour. You didn't waste 10 minutes here on social media. You didn't waste 10 minutes here reading news or watching TV. Quit the excuses. Let's get down to it. And I think the best friends we can have is the one that says, hey, man, you got a booger right there. Get it out. Not the one who goes, oh, well, let me not offend him and hurt his feelings. I think you got to be clear and you got to surround yourself with people that are going to be clear, whether that's a coach or hopefully all of the people around you are going to tell you, hey, you didn't log your food. CJ told you to log your food, log your damn food. Quit being an idiot. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's basic human behavior, and a lot of times it seems as though it's so apparent and it's like in your face, but at the same time, though, it's that accountability factor, and that's where obviously as a coach you come in and you kind of got to coach people into the right direction. Another thing that I always think about though too, it's like when you do take somebody that's almost I wouldn't say broken, but you're almost putting them back together and you're kind of being almost like holding up a mirror of like how much they've been able to accomplish already on their own, and are successful in that regard. But how do you deal with somebody who's just like at the lowest of the lows, man? How do you deal with somebody who maybe hasn't experienced success and is still trying to figure it all out? What's the angle that you, I guess, have to approach, or what's the approach with them?
So success breeds success. We got to start getting some small victories under the belt. Wake up at 5 in the morning for the next 7 days. Let's see if you can do that. Text me at 5 every single morning for a week. And let's see if that, and then I can start telling them, all right, you know how many percentage of the population does that? It's maybe 1%. It's very small number. Wow, you're able to do that. So your discipline's not bad. I wonder what else you can do. Right. And then we jump to the next thing and the next thing. And then we try to set. So give me a physical thing that you think is tough. Is it diving in the ocean? Is it jumping out of an airplane? Those are pretty extreme. Okay. Have you run a 5K before? Have you walked for 4 hours straight ever? We just start, or 2 hours, an hour, whatever it is for that person, right? And get them to get that success under their belt. Because once they start getting a little bit of success, all right, man, you're doing it. And by the way, I've worked with guys like that. And then they look back a few months later and go, I'm another person. When they start realizing it, they get so pumped up and they keep going. What I want, I don't want to coach people forever. One-on-one, it's intense, it's a lot, it takes up my time, it takes all my energy, because to me, they become like my kids. I got 4 kids. I love them. I want the best for them. The people I coach, I'm in it. They will talk, and then the next time we talk, they'll recap everything from the last time. I'm like, dude, I remember all of that. And I can tell you that you said that Mike met Susan, who said that, and I can remember a lot of it because I'm in it. I'm living it with them. I don't want to do that forever, and I don't want them to be dependent on me. So I'm showing them along the way how, hey, this isn't me. Every time they tell me, somebody said it to me today. He wrote to me and said, what you taught me is changing my life. And he put a picture about what I'm teaching him about that. And I said, yeah, but I've taught that to a lot of people and they're not doing it. You're doing it to keep showing that you don't need me. Now, if I was somebody who needed their money, I might try to keep them hooked. I don't need their money. So I'll work with them for a little while and then say, all right, man, out of the nest. Let me coach someone else. Jump, go do it on your own. So I think that's one key, is to let them see that, yeah, build success over time. The other one is, people make visualization boards, and they put a picture of the house they want to have, and the car, and the kids, and the family, and the vacations, and they put it all on the board. I think that's great. You know what else you could do for a guy who said, I haven't really accomplished too much? Because I've gotten a lot of that. And I live in Miami, Florida, with a lot of immigrants who built some amazing lives. And they don't realize it because they're surrounded by that culture here in Miami, which is, hey, we're here, let's get up. 9 out of 10 people I heard in South Florida weren't born here. And most of those, a lot of those weren't even born in the country. So it's a land of like, get here and make it rich, right? So a guy that I work with recently, I had him put together a board of, show me that ghetto you grew up in, and put a picture of that ghetto, and put a picture of the car your family had, and put a picture of a janitor, because that's what your dad did all his life. Put pictures of that, and then have a beautiful vision board for the future. But now you start seeing where you came from. It's why I said about the shirt in the closet. Sure, yeah. When I walk in, I am grateful every single day. God, I'm here. And it's my driver.
Well, no, it's crazy because you're right. That contrast. And if you have it right next to what you deem, I guess, as luxury and everything that you're going for, it almost gives you that stark contrast right in your face of like, dude, I could fall back into this, or, I could go in the direction that I want. Plus, the thing is, too, and I've mentioned this a million times on my podcast, but it's always pain versus pleasure. I find that you're either motivated by pain or you're motivated by pleasure. And for myself, I'll be honest, man, I've always worked way harder when I think about the pain of screwing up, the pain of suffering, the pain of not getting there motivates me way more than having the pleasure of like a Lamborghini, let's say. It's like, okay, we're not going to eat, that's one thing versus like, I'm going to drive the nicest car ever, as far as contrast goes. I think that's very, very intelligent, because that's the best way to spur somebody into the direction that it's really going to get them going.
I got an example about pain. I was running a 10K in a forest, and it was a very narrow path. To pass the guy in front of you, you got to say to your left, and the guy's got to scoot over as much as you can to the right, and you can pass him. And guess what? I'd already been passed a couple times, and I wasn't passing too many people, and kind of we were all locked into our speed now. To finish the first 1K or 2K, you're kind of fighting for position. Now that's your pace. And man, I remember not being able to catch that group in front of me way up there. But the moment that I heard footsteps behind me for about 8K, all I could do is they're not passing me. And I pushed myself harder than I ever had. And I've done a lot of races, ultra races, marathon, everything. That 10K will never slip my mind, because in a big road race, they'll just pass you. But on a narrow thing where you're going to hear the negativity up to your left, and you feel like the sissy has got to scoot over and let the man pass you, I didn't want to hear that. So every footstep I heard sped me on more. So I spent about 8K driving, and I pushed myself at a faster pace than I'd ever done because of the fear of being passed up.
That's crazy. And I mean, it's true. It's almost like, and I think going back to what you mentioned too, like when you were 12 and you're hanging out with your buddies, that competitiveness amongst men, a group of men always has that too, where, you push each other further. It's kind of like when you're playing basketball, this guy's shit talking. It's like, man, shut up, man. I'll trash talk you. It's like, you're not going to beat me. And obviously there's times where you lose, there's times that you win. But I think life is kind of like that, where you build that resiliency to kind of go through it, where it's like, hey, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But when you kind of have that, that mindset of, this is competitive and I'm going to enjoy the process, even though it might suck at times. Because when you do lose, yeah, it sucks. And to your point, you hear those footsteps, you're like, hell no, man. I'm not going to lose this battle, right? But when you actually have that community built around you, I think it's super important. And I guess when you're dealing with your guys, they can kind of come to you, and you're the guy that basically spurs them forward. Like, you can almost be that voice in the background, like, okay, cool, you better get going then.
So a lot of the guys in my program, when they go through my 31-day program, I hand select. See, again, I'm not trying to move them all into this paying program, but I hand select a few guys. I only have 24 per class, but then I choose the very top guys. I go, I want these guys in my life. And I invite them into what's called the brotherhood. And I only choose a few. It's a paying thing. They pay to be in there, but I bring them authors. I bring them guest speakers. That two of my friends that have exited for over 100 million told the whole story privately in our Zooms. We put together an annual retreat. We do all these awesome things. But I've had so many of those guys say to me, and they say it in our WhatsApp group, and they say it on our Zoom calls. They say, the other day I was battling between doing this, and I heard Joel's voice in my head. Whether they're working out or do they make that call to their wife? Do they have that difficult conversation? Do they do that thing? And they say that they hear my voice. And I couldn't feel more proud to play that little part, that little voice in their head that maybe pushes them that 1%. Man, keep adding up 1% over a long time. I'm in this for the long haul. So if they keep doing that for a long time, they're going to continue to be brilliant.
I think so. And you know what? The thing is, when you combine all these different elements that you talk about, I can see why so many people are successful. But as a whole, what do you think about masculinity in our society right now and how things are kind of playing out for because I know you got a couple boys, I got boys too, right? And what's your common kind of I guess, what's your take on what's going on with men, young men in particular right now?
Yeah. So I'm aware of it from my kids. So we got 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl. I don't watch television. I haven't seen the news in over 8 years. Not one coverage, not one piece. I know nothing of the world. I'm ignorant and I love it because I don't have to bring in all that. To me, it's noise. What is seeing a war on television going to do for me? Is that going to make me happier? Is that going to build depression, anxiety, stress? I am convinced that the media and the pharmaceutical companies work hand in hand. We'll stress you out. We'll make you feel better with drugs, right? They work well together. So I don't let that noise come into me. But I do have social media and I look at it a little bit. I have boys and girls that come from school and tell me things. I show them what I believe in. I'm much more traditional. I am a man. No one will ever dispute that I'm not a man. My wife wants a man. My wife wants to be a woman, and she's a phenomenal woman. She's the best woman I've ever met. Been married over 21 years. We're absolute best friends. Probably fought 3, 4, 5 times in 21 years. And wow. I can't remember if we argued in the last 8 years, So we built it right in a traditional way. My wife was a registered nurse until I built my business up, and she was 30 years old. She was able to retire and focus on our kids. And that's when we had our 3rd and our 4th. We're very traditional in a lot of ways, and we find the most happiness. My wife finds the most complete life, that I am providing the things that I need to provide to the family, and she's providing all that, the soft side, the motherly side, the logical, not explosive side, not aggressive, just awesome women features. By the way, I love women. I coach men because that's my expertise. Coincidentally, my wife built a coaching program for women only.
That's good, man.
So we both know our roles. I think what's happening in the society, and you can Google this stuff up, a man's handshake has lost how many pounds of pressure from the 1970s to today in just like a generation. Guys are shaking like girls used to shake. Women's handshakes, however, have gotten really strong. Nobody's telling girls to shake harder. Nobody's telling boys to shake softer, but something is happening. One thing, a couple 100 years ago, you and I would be out in the field or out hammering iron or whatever with our dad and our grandfather. That's what life would have been like for us early on, right? Many years ago. But what's happened over the last civilizations, changes, 100 years or whatever? Boys go sit in a classroom with girls, with 4 walls. And who's teaching? A woman. And what do a lot of these guys want to do? Please the woman. So you get an A, so you get a pat on the shoulder. So she tells your parents you're doing well. So then you go home and your dad's at work all day, and maybe you see your mom or you see television and you're influenced by all this. And a lot of it is the man's the idiot. Watch television shows right now for kids. Mm-hmm. I saw this on Disney, canceled Disney right away after I started seeing a pattern. The dad in all the shows is the buffoon. He's the idiot. He knows nothing. The kids are the smart ones, and maybe the mom's the smart one. But the dad is the enemy, the idiot, the laughing stock. I don't allow that in my house, so we're not doing that. And I explain it to my kids. I go, look what's happening there. And what do you think that family will lead to? That's an unhappy guy. He doesn't feel like the leader. How's he going to show up? Oh, he's probably going to stay on the couch and drink because he's given up on life. The wife's running the business, the show, the family. The kids are even worse. The kids are running the show. So that's what I think society is leading toward. It's a softening of men, strengthening of women. Strengthen women all you want. I love it. Strengthen men,
Mm-hmm.
continue to strengthen men. And the way I approach that is by doing some hard stuff that naturally builds adrenaline. I'm sorry, adrenaline, which leads to
Yeah.
building testosterone and carry, and you know more about this, carry heavy things,
Mm-hmm.
run wind sprints, dunk in a frozen water tank, do a lot of hard things, fight jujitsu. That's my favorite. That makes you back to being a man again and kind of wakes you up from that noise and that anesthesia that society's pouring, whether it's coming in through the water or the medications or the alcohol. It's softening these guys up.
100% agree with you, man. I think the other thing that's underratedly bad for men is food. Like the food we're eating literally comes loaded with like, oh man, what is it again? Like dude, all that like the microplastics, the estrogenics, and even the stuff that you find in like, a lot of like, perfumes. It seems like it's loaded everywhere to just kind of bring down the morale of men and really affecting us, because it's kind of like, why should we have stuff that is in female birth control and our hormonal disruptors, and we find it everywhere, right? So it's a
That's right.
combination of different things where I'm looking at it too, where it kind of scares me to a degree, right? But to your point too, I don't watch the news. Like I do my research and stuff, and I kind of, I'm not gonna say I live in fear because I'm not gonna give into it, but at the same time I'm aware of it, and I know enough to say like, okay, cool, I'm gonna make sure for my kids we avoid this. We're gonna make sure that we don't let that kind of media into our house as well, because if you
Yeah.
do, I think that if you surround yourself with it, you might, without knowing it, become a part of it and even support it, right, to a certain degree.
Or if you stay quiet about it. So
Yeah.
when everyone can believe what they want, and I respect that, but I respect myself first. If you look at my LinkedIn, my pronouns are hell no. I'm not going to put him, he. I'm not playing their games. I'm who I am, and I'm more than anything. I'm leading a charge to show men to take this back. And I don't
Mhm.
mean take back society and go form a war, but take back your home. You can control that. Just like when I take, one of the challenges in my book is to set up dates with your kids. If you have kids, if you don't, then find a nephew, a niece, or your parents, if that's all you have, whoever you have, and set a date on a routine with them. So 1 month, I take out one kid for a date, the next one, the other one, the next one, the other. And after 4 months, it rotates. When I go to dinner with my daughter or a show or whatever we do on our date, I'm sitting with my back against the wall. I'm watching the front door. I've already told my kids, they know if we're at a restaurant and a crazy guy comes in swinging a hammer because he's delusional, we run out the back. My kids can tell you right now, where's the exits in every place they walk into, right?
Mhm.
But I want my daughter to see that that's the man that takes care of her. And since she was a baby, we've been doing these dates, and I open the door for her. And I go around and I open the door to let her out. I open the door at the restaurant. I talk about her. I ask her a lot of questions. I show interest in her. And the same thing, I do it with my boys, but then it's from a different perspective. And they also see me treat my daughter and treat my wife a certain way. Us being those good examples changes the world, because when you look back to your great, 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 great grandfather, how many people came from him?
Mhm.
500, bro. If you go way
Yeah, a
back,
lot. Yeah.
so many are going to come from us. Even if we have one kid or four kids or however many kids we have, a lot of people are going to come from them. And my responsibility is not what was above my line in my family. It's what's here today and below me. And I'm going to set that standard as best I can, especially when I see society going in a direction I don't want. I could just say, well, that's society. Somebody told me the other day he took his daughters to a movie and he found it totally inappropriate, the direction it was going and all this stuff. And he goes, but that's society nowadays. And I go, yeah, but that's not your family. You have three daughters. You could fight that. You could explain to them why that's wrong. And now
Yeah.
I think he's taking a different perspective and having those conversations.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you're right. It might seem a little bit uncomfortable at the, when you first see these things, and it's almost like you look at it and you're like, well, I should just kind of go with the flow and accept it. And I used to think that maybe for like a year or two early on, until I just saw too much of this, and I'm like, I'm not a buffoon, first of all, because I would see that all the time on TV as well, where it's just kind of like, oh, dad doesn't know how to change a light bulb because he's an idiot. So I would see that and I'm like, no, that doesn't vibe with me. I don't really like that. And the other thing too, it's always kind of like the man was very effeminate, didn't know how to change a tire, a lot of like very simple things where it's just like it seems like all the men are portrayed to be idiots. And for some reason, if you say something bad about that, then all of a sudden people look at you like, oh, you're a misogynist, you're this, you're like, they give you all these weird labels. And that's the thing that I find in our society right now. And I mean, I live in Canada, but it's the same deal. Like it's even worse up here because Trudeau is kind of, our
Yeah.
fearless leader.
Yeah.
But what we find is that these patterns and these beliefs, if you don't give in to them, they have no power and they literally die away. And I
Yep.
noticed that in this family, like in our family, it's like we kick it old school too, man. We want the traditional life. We're not fans of it. We're not going to support it. And by not supporting it, all of a sudden, all that just dies away right here where it
Yeah,
matters.
but you said it might be uncomfortable at first. I can tell you this: every uncomfortable conversation I've had with my employees, my leaders, my family, my parents, whoever, every man, the build up to that will drive you crazy. The build up to an uncomfortable conversation, you don't sleep at night, you start sweating, you get nervous, and guess what? Then you have it, and you always say, that wasn't as tough as I built it up in my head. And the results are so much more worth it. I'm so glad I had that conversation. So I would challenge anybody listening, find an uncomfortable conversation that you're lacking in your life. What could you go have that conversation, whether it's your spouse? Trust me, these are groundbreaking moments when you have that uncomfortable situation, a conversation. Now, there's a game plan in it. You don't just go in and have it and accuse and yell. And no, you got to go game plan, keep your cool, calm down. You're already a man, most likely, who's listening to this. You've got testosterone. It's going to come out loud. You got to be ready. You got to prepare yourself, practice it, stay cool, stay in the moment. Don't bring up things from the past. Just have that conversation of what you want going forward. I'm telling you, I've led a lot of guys through those, and they're life changers.
100%. And you're right. It's the anticipation. It's almost like the build up to whatever it is. It's almost like that pressure build up, right? And then when you finally have it, it's just like, actually wasn't that bad. We could probably do that again. And I'll go look for other conversations to have. And maybe that's where that pattern will come in a healthy way to be like, okay, if I did it once and it wasn't too bad, I could probably do it again. And I'll
That's the
do it again after
success
that.
breed success model.
Yeah. And now that we're on that too, I wanted to talk about your book because you mentioned that earlier on. But if you could tell us more about your book and some of the chapters in it and what concepts you go over.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I probably in the year that I've brought out the book, or maybe sold 1,000 copies. It's zero advertisements, just putting it out there, and whoever hears it hears it. And I've had 250 guys go through the program. With them, I work on the book. And I always tell them, do not read the book before the class starts. So next week, our next class starts. It's sold out. And the guys are all chomping at the bit. They keep writing in the WhatsApp group saying, I want to start reading it now. It's not that kind of book. You don't just put this down and read it through. It's 3 to 5 minutes a day of reading. That's it. And then you got to go do my favorite part, the action, right? So what do we do in there? The first day, we're going to discover why we are on this planet through a series of questions that we got to ask ourselves with our accountability partner in the program. I help with it sometimes as the guys need. And we get to figure out why we are on this planet. So you always heard like people, you're going to go on a trip. You don't know where you're going. How are you going to get there? Nothing in school that we are taught ties in or touches on these things. And I think they're valuable lessons. My God, shouldn't a kid kind of have an idea why he's on this planet?
I think
Right?
so.
It's not to go to school. It's not to please his teacher. That's not the reason you're on this planet. A kid could say, I'm on this planet because I love to help people and I love science. So I'm probably going to help cure diseases. Great. Now, that kid's going to be driven, and some fortunate kids figure that out when they're young, and life is awesome for them because they figured that out. For some guys, they're 25 to 62, I've had in my program, and they're now figuring it out. They're like, man, I never stopped and thought about this. Okay, this is why I'm on this planet. When they start figuring that out, everything changes. You get up in the morning a little bit more excited. You start moving toward your goals a little bit better. The second day, and I'm not going to give them all away, and especially not in order and all that, but we work on goals. But see, everybody's got these big lofty goals, and they throw the word goal around a lot. I've got action plans, right? I'm going to accomplish this thing. All right, great. Give me 3 action plans that you're going to do for that. I want to sign up for a race. I'm going to run this big race. All right. When are you going to sign up for the race? That's a first action plan. Go. Tonight, I'm going to sign up. Boom. Got it. Knock that one out. And then I got to get a workout plan. All right, good. Can you do that tomorrow? Can you go online and Google free training plan for a 50K race? Yeah, I can do that tomorrow. I don't need you to do it all in 2 minutes, but can we do this over a little bit of time? Boom, knock it out. What's the next one you got to do? And we put a Google sheet, we share it, we see what each other's working on, and I get to see what you're doing. Those are the types of things that we work on. But there are little things. I'll tell you this. I don't care about transactions. I care about relationships. And I honestly am one of the people who I know who has the best relationships. I really do. And not because I'm some special person, but I'll give you an idea. I have at all times my card. It's a blank card with my initials on it. And whenever I have a meaningful conversation with somebody and I have an opportunity to send them a handwritten card, I do that. That allowed me, of the 14 businesses I bought, only one was on the market for sale. 13 of them were competitors that I built relationships with for a decade. And then you start it with a nice handwritten note. You send another one a year later. You don't have the memory to do that. Put it in your calendar and it pops up and you go send so and so a letter. I write it, put it in. I promise you no one else is doing that. You want to win people, you want to get them on your side. I didn't negotiate buying those 13 businesses. It was really like, hey, what's a fair price? All right, I'll offer you this. All right, let's do it. You've become one of my best friends over these last 10 years, right? And then you get your way. And it's not in a fake way. I really became friends with these people and I care about them and still have great relationships after I bought their businesses. So that's one thing. So one day you write a handwritten letter, things like that. I don't want to give it all away because even the guys who are in the program, I don't let them know it ahead of time. We do it one day at a time. You guys got a sneak peek here.
That's super interesting though, because I view it more as a manual. It's almost like an instructional manual. It's not to be taken, because I think I love a lot of the books that I read, right, in regards to Atomic Habits and different self-help coaching. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. All those books are fantastic. The problem is we read them, we do nothing. And I know, because I'm guilty of it all the time, where I've read all these wonderful books and I'm like, oh man, it's got wicked concepts. It's like, how did I apply any one of these concepts into my life? And then I look back and I'm like, nah, man, I haven't done a single thing that this book has told me to do. Or you'll take the things that are kind of just easy to implement, right? And some of the harder, kind of deeper concepts, you almost look at it, you're like, that seems like a great idea. Am I going to do it? Probably not.
Yeah, you're on your own.
Yeah. And now it's kind of like you got to be held accountable. You got to hold yourself accountable, which is obviously difficult for a lot of us in many different situations. But obviously, when you look at stuff that you have been successful in, it's because you've held yourself accountable, right? So it's almost like you found the perfect, like, I don't know, like alchemical formula to just kind of put these different things together and make it so people can say, okay, cool. I have the instructions, I have the instructional, and I have the action plan. And then on top of that, I got Joel that's going to hold my ass, to the fire. So I better do this.
Yeah. And I'm going to bug them in the WhatsApp and I'm going to say, hey guys, it's day 17. Who got their stuff done? And then they have an accountability group within the 24 men. They're each in a group of 3 and they really hold each other accountable. But then we have the big group and then we have the weekly check-in on a Zoom. If they can't make it, we record it, share it with them. But man, there's so many times where they got to share what they're doing. And something's happened. I don't know, maybe it's 15, 20 of the guys have repeated the class on their own. And every time I say, why, I don't even ask anymore. But in the beginning, I was like, CJ, why'd you sign up again? You just finished this class. Why'd you sign up for the next one or the next one? You go, and the words were always either these exact words or something to the effect of, I've got unfinished business. It was a day or two where I didn't do the right thing. And I kind of feel guilty with myself because here I saw all these brothers in this group striving and working hard, and I kind of half-assed one of them. So I'm in it now. So I just put a testimonial yesterday on Instagram, which I didn't ask him for. He's redoing the class for the 4th time. Super successful entrepreneur, owns this amazing company. He's doing great. It's his 4th time. And what he shared is every time I did this class, I got something different. His first one, he said on the finance day, he found tens of thousands of dollars that were slipping through his company. And he tightened them up that day. And he goes, I saved tens of thousands of dollars in one class. It cost me $199. And he goes, and that was my big takeaway on the first one. On the second one, I had a breakthrough with my wife and my kids. I mean, that's worth to me $1 million. The third one, he had a day, and I could be off on the number by a few, but where he did 625 push-ups. And he said when he started the first class, he couldn't do one push-up. He was overweight. He couldn't do it. He said on this 4th one, I'm now going to work on my overall health. So we don't always get everything out of, you read a big book with 300 pages and man, hopefully you get a nugget out of it. But there's nothing there that's like supporting you and saying, hey, did you do the thing? There's no one there asking you when you read a book on your own. That's why, sure, probably 750 people that have bought the book, they're doing it on their own. I don't know what's happened to them. But I know the 250 have gone through it with me. I know it's changing their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's an instructional manual, right? It's like when you have that in your back pocket or you have it available to you, now there's no excuse. And I think that's the beauty of it, especially if you're, to your point too, which I think is a massive underrated approach to it, is that you only have to read for 3 to 5 minutes a day. I think that's
built
key.
For me. That's built because of my attention span. I like audiobooks because I could go running, bike riding, I could do stuff and do that. But but if I have to read a book, I can't stand reading for like a half hour. I start getting distracted thinking about other things. But I just have this, and I don't want to do audio for this because who's going to log into their audible 31 days for 3 minutes? Just read the book, get it out, and move on to the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, 3 to 5 minutes. Everybody's got 3 to 5 minutes. To your point, too, where you're talking about how, like, you can't really bullshit it either. If you got small tasks that only take about an hour to 2 hours a day, you can do it. You can do it. Now, if it's 3 to 5 minutes, bro, you got even less excuses. So it's like, I love this approach because it's something that's very, now I'm not going to say easy. I'm going to say it's simple to do. Is it easy? Probably not. Because, these are challenges. And when you do something that's challenging, it's not easy, right? But it is simple in its approach, where at least now we don't have to deal with something that's super complicated and have to deal with all the intricacies and all that, that's taken out of it, which I think is the best way to go about it, man. Because
And by the way, I'm proud to say this, that if you listen to me speak, if you read my books, I write it and speak at about a 12-year-old level. I really do, intentionally. I don't want to use big words. Why am I going to try to be something I'm not or impress people with confusing them? I like simplicity. Nothing I ever say is hard. It's, oh, yeah, I get it. I could do that. Can you do this tiny task? Yeah. Oh, I haven't worked out in 10 years. Can you go once around the block today? Yeah, great. Can you do 2 tomorrow? Yeah, of course. And then I go, how silly is that? Just one? Are you really just going to do one? Maybe do a couple more, right? And people build themselves up over time. Now, 31 different challenges. I bet you if you did this class, CJ, you'd probably crush like 20 of them. But then there might be 10 that you're like, man, for me, because of my growing up, my childhood, my this, my these 10 or 11 are a little more difficult. But guess what? There's some other guys in the group who are going to say, really? You found this one difficult? Tell me why. And they chat about it. And then he goes, oh, man, and the one you found easy, I found difficult. And then you build this bond. And you're like, man, let me help you through that. Here's what worked for me. And you really impact and change a guy's life when you share from your past. And then, by the way, so I've got guys in there who are executives, entrepreneurs, and then I got guys who are carpenters, professional hunters that take people on tours, right? Plumbers. I got all kinds of guys. And the guy who might be a plumber says, I never thought I'd be able to help a guy. Here, I thought I'm just the employee. I don't do much with my life. And they feel like it. But he broke through a life-altering moment for these guys, that a light bulb came on because of something he shared from his past. He didn't even have to come up with anything. He just shared something about his history, and it changed some people's lives.
Well, it's crazy because, we can all bring something to the table. And I firmly believe that, because you're right. Like, there's guys that I've talked to about, like, let's say powerlifting and stuff. And the guy's smaller than me, like a $150. And he's like, no, he's like, why your deadlift sucks? It's because you're doing like this, and help me out with my form. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, he just helped me break through big time, right? And he was a guy that was smaller than me, whatever. And at the time, I was just kind of getting into powerlifting. And, he's like, I didn't know how to teach a big guy like you. I thought you already had this in the bag. But, and he got that ego boost. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool though, because I needed that. And again, it's kind of irrelevant of what your past may be, what your appearance may be. We all have something that we can bring to the table, right? So I kind of just love seeing the fact that you've created this brotherhood of guys who are able to bring something to the table and just kind of reinforce everybody, and just kind of making the whole community stronger as a whole. In your approach.
I'm 48 now. It took me 47 years to figure out what my calling was in this world and this life. And I found it, and it's this. And I built this for everyone else, but I'll tell you what, I'm getting a lot out of it because I'm doing every single day the stuff that I love to do. I used to always hear people say, you got to find your passion in business. And my passion was making money, and I made it. And that was great. I love it. I don't regret any of it. I wish I could have done this before, but maybe it wasn't the right time. So I'm very proud of having built this, but I'm just excited that I get to be a part of something that's changing people's lives.
100%. Well, I mean, what better way to leave this earth than, leaving that legacy behind of something that's actually, I guess you're changing people from the ground up, man. Like there's a lot of great things that you can do, but really seeing that change that a man can have, like I'm pretty sure it's like shattering, it's almost like you take something that's completely broken, you put it back together, and it's just, hey, you know what? Now you've leveled up, you're done with that plateau that you were in. Maybe you were stuck in a valley for a long time. Now you're completely out of it. Now you can fly. Right.
And then you're going to carry others with you. And by the way, so many people are watching us and we don't realize it. It could be a neighbor that sees you get up every day and exercise, and he doesn't tell you anything, but you motivated him. And now you don't see him, but every morning he's doing 50 push-ups because he saw you getting up and jogging. I'm telling you, people are watching, and you can influence so many people without even knowing it.
100%, man. But Joel, I mean, tell us a little bit more about your website, your books, all that good stuff, where we can find you, man.
Sure. The website is 31, the number 31, 31dailychallenges.com, 31dailychallenges.com. And when you go to it, you're going to see two things. You're going to see the men's challenge, a button you click, or the women's challenge. The women's challenge is my wife's. So here's a story of my wife. Was a registered nurse, became one, I think, at 20 years old, did that until she was 30, and then retired from that. She's got 4 kids. She was a labor and delivery nurse, saw everything you can imagine, from dead babies being born, moms dying, beautiful things of babies being born, twins, triplets. She saw a lot of good and bad things. So she's got some life experience there, and she started that at an early age. My wife also survived cancer and had to go through surgery. Not that long ago, she had to go through a couple of rounds of radiation. And she's fine. She's completely fine now, but she's tough. She's very tough. She's a no excuses person. I'll see my wife work out 3 times a day regularly. She trains jujitsu. She runs a lot. She walks a lot. We have a home gym, and she's always doing something, lifting, squats, ab workouts. It's every day. And she'll be sick, and she gets up and goes out to the garage, and I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "No excuses." And she really pushes hard. That's one of her best. I mean, she's an amazing person, but one of her best traits is that it's to just push people. Yeah. She pushes me to exercise because she doesn't say anything, but I see her looking like that, and a mom of 4 I can see her abs. I go, I better look good too. Right? And one day I asked her, "What is motivating you to work out so much and so hard and be so disciplined?" And she goes, "It's you. I'm watching you all the time work out, and you motivate me to work out." That was amazing. It's been years. We never had that conversation. We talk all the time. And I thought that was beautiful, that we're influencing each other in a positive thing. She's a great partner because she eats very healthy. So I eat very healthy. She does these good things and takes these supplements and natural things for the kids, and for her, I do too. So that's what my wife does. She leads these women in those 31 days. She just kicked off her first book. It's called It's My Turn. And it's because women kind of sometimes put the kids ahead of them, and maybe the husband ahead of them, and they're not paying attention to themselves. Some women are guilty of this. My wife is one of those. So she said, "No, it's my turn." And now this is a way to focus on making women the best version of themselves. Because when they take care of themselves, when they say, "You know what? I can't take my son to practice on Thursdays. We're going to have to find another route. I can't be super mom because I'm going to that hot yoga class that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I need that for my mental health." Right? Men have different things that we may need to do. Maybe a guy just needs to go out to a shooting range or kick some soccer balls or whatever, do something. So we all have those different approaches. That's my wife's program. And mine is the one that we talked about here. I coach guys one-on-one. I do that gladly. It's more expensive. It's more time consuming for everybody. My real passion is to get as many men through the program as I can for $199. They don't have to do the expensive coaching. So yeah, that's really it. You can learn more about me and my wife. It's a simple website, 31dailychallenges.com. And at the top, you can click about Joel, about Jessica, the brotherhood program that I have for the guys who graduate my 31-day class. It's all there.
100%, man. I'll make sure all the links are also in the description. Joel, this is an absolute blast. And honestly, man, I love your vibe. I love what you're doing. And just keep up the fantastic work, man, because we need more guys like you, man.
I appreciate it. And this is the help that I need. That's why I'm on here, to help your guys learn about this and keep it on their radar, because that's how we're going to keep improving the world.
100%, man. And don't worry, when this episode comes out, try to blast it out as much as I can.
Appreciate it.
With that being said, that's all for today's episode. We'll see you in the next one.